Welcome to episode number 7 of the UWF Fury Cast. I'm Gene Jackson along with Bob Anderson. Bob, how you doing today?
Doing well. Yourself, Gene?
Doing pretty good. Made it through a 7th episode of this, and we're still here. We're coming back for more. So quite the. I mean, not overall, not one of the best episodes, but there are some interesting goings on in this one, at least. So. Kind of get us started.
Well, this week we start off with a wonderful recap of the racist referee angle from several episodes ago, because we really needed to revisit that, apparently. When a top star like Col Debeers has started such a wonderful angle, you've got to make sure the people remember it. Then, in a new twist, we cut to ringside where Herb and Bruno are standing by. Shades of, Shivani and David Crockett, even though these two make David Crockett look like fucking Jim Ross at this point. And
instead of the normal green screen effects we've been seeing up to now. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, these. And I did notice Herb's taller than Bruno, which kind of surprised me. But
I don't know. I think he's standing on something.
He could be.
Pretty sure he was standing on something. Because Herb, in other pictures, Herb's a pretty short guy. I mean, you look at that picture of him next to Dr. Death, and there's no way that Bruno is that much. Like, if you put Bruno next to Dr. Death, I don't think Dr. Death's going to tower over him like he does Herb. So there's just no way Herb wasn't standing on something.
Could be the case. Not sure. But that was our opening. And then we head right to the ring as Dr. Death Steve Williams takes on some little scrawny bird-chested jobber and
Robbie Allen, for those keeping score at home.
Sure, that guy.
Of course, he went on to great fame and fortune as in something besides wrestling, I hope, because clearly it wasn't in wrestling.
My first note on this match was when Herb says that Doc is in top-tip shape.
Not to be confused with tip-top shape.
Precisely. And then a little later, Doc hits a football tackle, which Herb calls the Oklahoma Stampede. Right before Doc hits it up to the power slam, which he does not call the Oklahoma Stampede.
No.
And then that was pretty much the whole match. Which,
I mean, he hit a suplex at one point that looked like it could have broke the guy's neck. That was
Doc did beat the piss out of this kid, but it was way too long.
The other thing that stood out to me was he threw a drop kick in this match, which was not a staple of the Steve Williams repertoire by any stretch of the imagination. But that's kind of a staple here on UWF. We see some unexpected drop kicks, like you see Billy Jack Haynes throw that drop kick every now and then, and I don't remember him throwing a lot of drop kicks back in like WWF or any of the times I'd seen him previously. But
no,
he pulls it out here almost every match. Not well, but
he's doing it for the kids.
it's all for them.
But yeah, this Doc match was way too long, as all of the Dr. Death squashes have been. But he did beat the piss out of the kid, and he did look good. But they could have shaved a solid 6 minutes off of this thing.
And he was taunting Orndorff throughout. You hear him yelling about Orndorff. So we got to remind everybody that that's still a thing. We're coming back to it.
But it was definitely a top tip match, and
let's see here. I got distracted. So there's a shot of Herb clearly standing on the ring steps or something. He's not that much taller than Bruno, I promise you. And see here. There's this little sneak peek at who you can expect to see on here tonight. And there's a shot of him screaming about Orndorff, as we referenced, as he points at the gentleman's face. And there's where he took and rammed him back first into the ring post. Quite hard. No give in that. So
no, like I said, he was definitely not gentle with this kid in any way, shape, or form. But it was again a top tip ass beating.
No doubt.
And from there, just when I was thinking to myself, well, we've made it through 7 weeks of the UWF Fury Hour. This show can't possibly get any worse. I've had to sit through Col Debeers. I've had to sit through John Tolos. It can't get any worse. Then an interview played.
As it's about to right now.
Briscoe. And thanks to the other two so-called champions who refused my challenge, they have made me the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. And now I'm here because I hear that the UWF claims to have the toughest professional wrestlers in the game today. Your Paul Orndorffs and your Steve Williams and your Bob Ortons, etc. Well, here I am. Here's your chance to prove who's the toughest man.
How dare you disparage the good goddamn name of the living legend, Larry Zbyszko? He's there. He's the heavyweight champion of the world.
I feel like I just lost a game of human chess.
He's the master of it. If you don't believe him, just ask him.
All right. First of all, was he just claiming to be the toughest man in the world?
Yes. Well, I mean, he's the AWA world champion in 1990. So, you know, that speaks volumes for what kind of a tough guy he is. He didn't even win the
fucking Team Challenge series.
Well, Jake Milliman was a part of that. You're not going to win when he's involved, you know. But he did win the world heavyweight title in a pretty
battle
royal. What's up, Smokey? It's our producer here, producer Smokey, dropping in to check it, see how things are going. What's up?
Is he here to lambast me for not liking Larry Zbyszko too?
He's very offended that you would dare disparage. That's one of his top 5 favorite wrestlers, Larry Zbyszko.
I'm sorry that your poor taste has rubbed off on the cat.
Well, let me point out though that one of his favorite things to do is sleeping, and so he finds that Larry Zbyszko promos and matches are conducive.
Well, okay, that makes good sense then.
Getting pretty good rest. So.
I mean, that interview was one step above his run as the Cruncher, but that's really about it.
Is there a worse nickname in the history of wrestling than Larry the Cruncher Zbyszko?
I'm not sure there is, but
that is predicated on him slamming was it Dustin or Barry?
I don't remember.
In the car door of a tiny Mercedes that they were both too big to be riding in. He had 2 6'6" guys pull up in a tiny little Mercedes convertible, which didn't do anything for their cowboy.
No.
Cowboy shit was a lot different in 1991 than I guess it is now. But at least they weren't wearing Dolly Parton shirts and goddamn butterfly jeans, so they had that going for them.
Yeah. Speaking of Cowboys, what a great segue into our next match. That's enough Larry Zbyszko talk.
I could go on all day, but yeah, we must keep this moving. The Ace.
Mr. Bob Orton heads to the ring next to take on another jobber that you probably know the name of, and I don't.
Stefan De Leon. Or, as we say in Alabama, Stephen DeLeon.
Yes. I'm going to bet that's probably closer to the truth than this guy actually being French.
I just remember hearing that's how Herb announced it at first. Like, Stefan De Leon is in the ring, Bruno. And Bruno's like, yeah, Stefan De Leon.
Typical Bob Orton squash here. I did note he hit a pretty neat-looking face lock into a backbreaker. I was also surprised to see him apply the cravat, as made famous later on in my eyes by Chris Hero.
Chris Hero, or for any JCW fans out there, Piss Taco. But
Piss Taco, indeed. And then he hit some kind of like press. I wrote down press backbreaker, but I don't remember what I'm talking about at this point.
He took him up in like a Ultimate Warrior Gorilla Press, then brings him down into a backbreaker. It was pretty cool.
That's
but
right.
Like you say, it was a very odd. It was notable. I had that in my notes. That press slam into a backbreaker was creative. I don't know if you noticed this. So when I was editing this show, I may or may not have been doing this at my job, kayfabe, but so I was wearing headphones, and so the sound on these shows leave a lot to be desired anyway. But I had it cranked up and I had the headphones on, and there's someone in the crowd at this particular set of tapings that sounds a lot like Bill Alfonso screaming out random things at different times. And during this match, you hear very clearly at one point, at least wearing headphones, "Get up, you bum, and fight like a man." And so I started noticing this guy's just randomly yelling shit throughout the show. So I've made a note. There ain't many good ones in this one, but in the next episode coming up, little teaser that there's a couple of crazy things that this guy yells out that's very audible on the show.
Is he calling it right down the middle, Daddy?
No, it's not actually Bill Alfonso, because if it was, he would be, but this guy's just clearly leaning towards the bad guys, it would seem. So he's not Fonzie.
So I believe you have a clip of this match, you said?
I have a clip of the finish of Superplex. So Bob Orton was known as the originator of the Superplex, the inventor of the Superplex, and always had one of the better looking, Superplexes out there. But last week's or week before, whatever the last time we saw Bob Orton in the ring, it looked a little off. And this one to me, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm being nitpicky, but something about this one looks a little odd. But take a look.
Really? Whoa. Oh my. I'll tell you, with what Steve DeLeon has taken, this is too much. That's exactly what he's going to do now. He's going to give him a superplex.
No question, he's setting him up for that great move. And again, as I said before, nobody does it quite like wow. 1, 2, 3. He's at it.
He kind of steps off, like usually where he comes just straight backwards. He kind of like stepped off with one foot and came down, which seems to me could leave a potential for an ankle sprain.
He definitely pivoted 2 weeks in a row to not land flat on his back. I wonder if he's protecting an injury or.
Seems likely. Yeah, it does. Because years of seeing him do that, those are the only 2 times that I ever, it was noticeable that it was like, oh, that looked weird.
That one almost looked like he was going to drop that kid into a brain buster, but.
Yeah.
So he finishes the kid off, and then he gets the microphone.
That sounds like something you would say about Billy Jack Haynes. Finishes the kid off. But anyway.
He loves those kids.
Well, of course. A little too much.
Not that way. Only in Portland. Anyway, I digress. So then he gets the microphone and he calls out Paul Mr. Wonderful Orndorff. And I assume we probably went to commercial break during the actual show at this point. I don't know.
Yeah, we did. We went to a commercial and Billy, B. Brian hawking shirts and all the normal crap you would sit through.
It was the 90s. I'm sure there was a Budweiser commercial and something for Starburst. And anyway, so we get back and he's still in the ring waiting for Mr. Wonderful. And then for some reason, You Shook Me All Night Long by AC/DC hits, which I made note of because it didn't make sense to me because that's Brian Blair's theme music for whatever fucking reason.
Yeah. I mean, it makes a little more sense now that Honey's with him, but.
Who?
Honey.
There you go.
Okay, I just want to point out that as I'm watching this, and I'm sure like as a fan in 1990, I'd have been like, man, Paul Orndorff is screwed. He's got Dr. Death out here screaming about him, and now he's got Cowboy Bob Orton wanting a piece of him, and now all of a sudden here comes B. Brian, and this kind of works out. Continue.
So yes, Brian Blair comes out, and it's his time for a match, but Orton wants Orndorff, and Blair says, you're not. It's one of those classic things to start a new angle. And then Blair comes off with one of the stupidest lines I've ever heard, even though it's in character. Orton's like, get out of my ring. I want Orndorff. And Blair tells him to keep his nose out of his beeswax. And I just a little inside.
I mean, we've established on here that Brian Blair's a really nice guy who wrote a really good book and had a great career. But oh my Lord, he says some of the corniest stuff. Like everything he says in UWF seems like it was scripted by whoever wrote the promos for Saturday night's main event, where they had those really punny, fucking corny promos that NBC wrote for him. He has said some of the most awful verbiage on here where you're just cringing. It's like, oh my God. I do have to say that they did manage with this, unlike where UWF usually just kind of starts and stops things. This did manage to pivot Orton away from Mr. Wonderful, where they never really, finished off they had the match with a weird count out that they never paid off after that. Think we do way, way down the line, but not right now. And then this steers Blair away from Spivey, who's still in Greece, and away from the bounty hunter who, we can only assume blew his brains out because we don't ever see him again. So he must have took Tolos's suggestion and did himself in.
Speaking of which, here comes John Tolos down to the ringside just to make me a little fucking angrier as he tells Bob Orton not to fight Brian Blair, and they leave together because apparently now Tolos is going to manage fucking Orton since he has no one else to manage since Spivey's in Greece, and the bounty hunter is back.
Yeah, he fired his only guy that would actually show up to shows. He fired him last week, so not great thing on his part. I could only wish just so we might could see your head explode like Scanners at some point if they would have had John Tolos manage Larry Zbyszko. I do believe you would probably quit the podcast immediately.
There's got to be a weapon in here somewhere.
Oh no! Don't take the bounty hunter way out, or the what is it? The headhunter.
Oh yes, the
bounty
headhunter.
Hunter. No, bounty hunter, headhunter, bounty. Okay, I can't.
TOLOS spells fuck me.
Louie Spicolli makes his debut here.
I was happy to see Louie. Always liked the guy.
Member of the Heart Foundation.
Yeah,
he had on, even though they never wore peach-colored tights, but definitely was the look I believe he was going for, and he had PewDiePie stenciled in across his buttocks.
He did. But he came out and had a really good match with Blair. This match probably makes my top 5 UWF matches so far.
Well, let's take a look at why here. We've got a few brief highlights here of Louie Spicolli and B. Brian Blair.
Hey, give me a little time here, Rob. They're ready to go. Whoa, look at this guy.
Spicolli trips on the rope. There's the buzzard. I love that. Don't you, Bruno? Oh!
And here he comes with the elbow right on top of the head.
Bruno, this looks like the Scorpion. This is one of Blair's favorite moves, that Scorpion.
He's got it. He's
probably going to submit. He sure does. Spicolli submits.
Look at those transitions that producer Smokey's been putting in there now. That's
very nice. You can see we've increased the budget of this podcast twofold.
That's right. I made sure that he put the buzzer in there just for you, and especially since Herb, had his sound effects.
Yes, I actually made note of Herb making the buzzing noises. It was very good. As you can see, the UWF's budget went up twofold as well.
That's right.
And then came my favorite part of the match, as Blair fucked up the Scorpion so thoroughly that he accidentally perfectly applied the Texas Cloverleaf.
Now, I don't...
Almost.
I don't have I'm not good with timeline. I know that, power bombs didn't really come along until into the 90s. Did Brian Blair just accidentally invent the Texas Cloverleaf right there? Is that the first one? Dean Malenko is watching UWF, and he nudges his brother Joe, hey, I think he's on to something there.
I mean, that wasn't the Scorpion, but that was a pretty good Texas Cloverleaf. Completely by accident, but... But anyway, yeah, young Louie came out there and chicken shit healed himself all over the place. And like I said, we joke about Blair, but Blair's a pretty good wrestler, and they had a really good match. And I mean, it's not Cactus David San Martino, which is a very fucking weird thing to say out loud.
Yeah.
But definitely in my top 5 UWF matches so far through 7 weeks.
I can't disagree with that. And yes, you know that you are thoroughly in
hell
in the UWF universe when a squash match between Brian Blair and Louie Spicolli is the best, and that you have to say the phrase, "It's no David San Martino and Cactus Jack." I think even Cactus Jack would probably shake his head at that one and be like,
Yeah. But yeah, I hope there's more Louie Spicolli coming up, because he makes a good chicken shit jobber, doing the silly bumps, but he's a hell of a worker. He always was.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I liked him as fucking Radford. I liked him in ECW. It's too bad.
It's a shame that things turned out the way they did, because I think he still had a ton of potential and a great career ahead of him. Maybe he was a little before his time. If he'd have come along a little later and come up through the indies and the Ring of Honor type style wrestling and that sort of thing, and I think he would have been huge on the indie scene and came in with a little more momentum when he did make it to the big time, because all he had really done outside of WWF and WCW and ECW was this sort of thing, jobbing on.
He had that big run in AAA, but
yeah, which I mean, people here don't really know much. Don't know much. But was he Madonna's boyfriend or some shit they called him down there? And then he had, I think he did something under a mask with the guy who's the Black Knight and our friend Spitball Patterson. They were Los Mercenarios or some such under masks right around the same time, actually. I think that's kind of how he ended up here, is because he knew Bill Anderson, who was the Black Knight / the medic who carries people out on stretchers / the guy who booked the jobbers /
many more to come.
Yeah, gets the coke for Herb, whatever. And that's kind of was his end here. So yeah, it's good to see him on here, and I hope he sticks around. Some people do, and some people you see him once go, "Hey, that was pretty good," and then
off they go,
disappear into thin air. But moving on.
Yes. I think next was the Cactus Jack promo.
The unpredictable Cactus Jack, that is.
Not sure why that bandana looks like he's wearing an aluminum foil hat.
Well, that's part of that unpredictability there.
That's true.
You just never know.
Not his best promo. I don't really remember what it was even about at this point, but
I think that was another one of these it was another one of these random promos to promote that they were coming to New York, as he rattled off random New York City landmarks, and they were going to get destroyed when Cactus Jack came to town. And you're starting to see those pop up here. You'll see Lou Albano do one after a while, and Cactus did one. I forget.
I think Nikita does one.
Yeah, Nikita, exactly. So, but here comes your favorite portion of each show.
So we have Albano's Corner, and this week his guest is John Tolos. And I know I don't like either man, but Gene, I think even you'll agree with me, this may be the worst segment that's ever aired on this show.
So you'll have to assume the universe got together and was like, all right, how can we make a Captain Lou's Corner so bad that even Gene can't be amused by how much it annoys Bob? And they pulled it off, because when I seen on paper that Captain Lou's Corner is going to be John Tolos, I'm going to clip that whole damn thing and play every minute of it just for that look on Bob's face when we come back. And after I watched, I sent you a message, and I was like, dude, that was so bad. I'm not even going to show 2 seconds of it. Like, it wasn't even so bad. It was good. It was just so bad. It was like, I'm never going to get that minute and a half of my life back. It was just pure shit. It's so, as with all these Captain Lou segments, and as with all the John Tolos promos, it's just a bunch of arbitrary yelling and screaming and saying nothing at all. There you see Captain Lou chewing on his fucking tie. it was obnoxious, and I wasn't going to subject anybody to that.
It's two old men fucking yelling at each other. Who's getting over? Who is this fucking support? Like, who? I mean, what's the point? Albano's not managing anybody. It's not getting Tolos's. Like, if Tolos's guys come in and beat the shit out of Albano at the end, at least somebody would have got some heat. But nobody got over.
That's my big gripe about all these Captain Lou's corners is nobody's getting over with it. There's no point to it. They all kind of follow the same deal where, you know, he starts out putting them over, but then they argue halfway through, and then it comes to some sort of resolution at the end. But it doesn't get the wrestler's character over. What do we do? Well, we don't need Captain Lou to get over. He's only doing these segments, which it's simply there because they think that Captain Lou has some kind of value because he'd been in the business for 50 years or whatever. But they're awful. I mean, they're just like, there's not really one that I can point to and be like, well, you know, that one was entertaining at least. The closest thing to being entertaining was the one with Andre, just because, you know, Andre talking has always amused me. It just does. It shouldn't, I guess, but it does.
I mean, had he done the fucking Mario Kid show by this point?
You know, I've been trying to figure out the timing of that. I want to say he probably had, because like the heyday of Mario was like 85, 86, and we're in 1990 now. So, I mean, it's still, I mean, Mario's still relevant, Nintendo's still relevant and all that. But I would have to think that maybe Mario was maybe 87, 88-ish, because you didn't see anything of Captain Lou in WWF around that time. And
right.
He had the goatee and shit shaved off in that part. But that's just purely speculation. I would have to look and I don't know. I mean, that's pretty easy. I could Google that and see, but we'll make that homework for next week.
Even then, because I mean, fucking Albano hadn't been relevant since the Cyndi Lauper angle. So yeah, like you said, there's no point in getting him over unless, I mean, if the Mario tie-in was there, maybe. But
you know, they would mention it if it was. You know, I mean, you know, as seen on the Super Mario Super Show. And another thing is, and I know all the managers of the 80s, you know, Heenan had his stock lines, and Jimmy Hart, different people had stock lines, but like Lou Albano has like 4. And so in this promo, I made this one note. Because he's used it. If we've got 7 episodes, that means there's 7 Captain Lou's corners, and in at least 3 of them, he uses the line about he used it mostly about the other person. If you put their brain's the size of a BB, and if you put it in a pigeon, it would fly backwards. He said that about the other person 2 or 3 times, and then one time he said it about himself. And so he whips that old tired ass line out again. I watched a Coliseum video of him here a while back, like Best of Captain Lou or whatever. And you hear him throughout that tape, like, God dang, he's been saying the same shit for years. Like, he doesn't come up with anything new. But anyway, we spent probably way more time than we needed to on that. So we'll move ahead.
The segment sucked ass. That's the moral of our story.
Yeah, if you watch them, just fast forward past it. If you think like, well, there's going to be a payoff here, no, there's not. There never is.
Ooh, who's that?
My throat's sore. I can't do it.
All right.
Today.
So Nikita cuts a promo about how he's going to be coming in New York. I think he meant to New York, but it sounded really wrong. So we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I made a note of that. Because he says, I'm coming. Look for him. Look for me to come, or something like that. He says he gets it in there twice, so to speak.
Nikita, and then the red light district of New York,
mysteriously, just as the bounty hunter exits the UWF, suddenly Spitball Patterson reappears to take on.
Wonder where he'd been.
I don't know. I'm sure he's probably been off touring Japan. Maybe he was in Greece hanging out with his buddy Dan Spivey. I don't know.
Maybe he was just somewhere spitting because he does that a lot.
Yeah, maybe he slipped and sprained his ankle because he'd spit so much.
Returns just to wrestle Nikita.
Mm-hmm.
It's a squash.
I'm pretty sure Bruno was getting a bonus for every time he said the phrase "big guys" in this match because he said it a lot. Oh, a couple of big guys. Oh, so such big guys. And I heard the biggest lie ever told on UWF TV, as it was said, Patterson has had a few victories here in the UWF.
What?
No, he hasn't. No, he hasn't. Even the Bounty Hunter only had one victory in his 2 matches that he had. And Spitball Passion has had 0 victories in the UWF. I guess we're trying to imply that they're doing some big house show touring and that he's out here racking up victories out here in these shows that, aren't happening and aren't being advertised. But that was
They're all
an
in
eye
Rio de
roller for
Janeiro,
me.
Gene.
Yeah, must be.
The thing I noticed was fucking Herb kept yammering on and on about Nikita's tongue hanging out of his mouth. That was the only thing I made a note of because he talked about it several fucking times.
I got a note of that too. And then Bruno, he mentions it several times, and then Bruno goes on to mention, yes, I used to be bad to do that too. People would tell me my tongue was hanging out of my mouth. I didn't even realize it. I'm like, this match is that bad that we've got to sit and ramble about Nikita's tongue being out and the fact that Bruno back in the day used to keep his tongue out and people would tell him about it. Like, maybe your match wasn't that. Maybe they should tell you something like, was the match really that great if everybody's takeaway was, oh, my tongue was out of my mouth for half the match. Hey everybody, Gene Jackson here, inviting you to check out the Retro Wrestling Review, where each week I'm joined by some great co-hosts who help me review classic episodes of USWA Championship Wrestling, and right now we are doing week-by-week reviews of 1993. But we don't just do reviews, sometimes we get a chance to interview some of the people who were there and lived it, plus do watch-alongs. It's a lot of fun, so check out new episodes that drop every Wednesday at WrestleCopia.com. And to find links to everything associated to the podcast, you can go to uswapodcast.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Sheik, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all. And all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey guys, this is Wolfie D from PG-13. Check out my podcast, Live and in Color with Wolfie D, every Monday at noon. We're talking Memphis, we're talking ECW, WCW, WWF, everywhere that I've been. We even have some great guests, some Hall of Famers on the show with us. Every Monday at noon, Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
Man, this was a great episode.
We're not even to the best part yet, so.
Oh, I know. Hey, but at least up next is Orndorff, who's been the fucking highlight of this show for weeks.
That's right. And so, if nothing else is good, you're going to see one of these.
Oh, yes.
Right there.
And he's taking on the Masked Grappler. Now.
No, he's not taking on the Masked Grappler. He's taking on a Masked Grappler.
Okay, yes. If Len Denton was watching this episode in 1990, I hope he called his fucking lawyer. Hell, if Tony Anthony was watching this episode in 1990, I hope he called the fucking lawyer. Because this was a grappler, but not the grappler.
No. I guess I'll point out the useless knowledge that I pointed out to you before we started. It occurred to me as I was watching this. If you guys remember, a couple of weeks ago, Paul Orndorff wrestled a jobber and executed a great pile driver on a guy named Matt Starr. He was wearing a red singlet and black boots, and I had made mention on here that he looked like a guy with the size that he had that they could have shaved his head and made him another nephew, cousin, whatever of Ivan Koloff. And if you look, there's the red singlet, there's the black boots. He threw on some tights, and he's wearing the Black Knight mask, not one that looks like it. He's wearing the Black Knight mask, and now he's the grappler instead of Matt Starr.
I just have this vision of my head in the jobber locker room. Like, there's like, here, you wear this and I'll wear that. And
It's like mix and match to create a jobber video game back there.
They hit square to random it, and that's who they are this fucking week.
I don't want to be the grappler. Well, you're going to be.
Fuck you, you're the grappler. I had to be the Black Knight. But anyway, hey, I love this match. Fucking Orndorff wastes no goddamn time. He beats the fuck out of the guy, throws him out of the ring, brings it back in, pile driver. It's done. Like 3 minutes fucking tops. It was perfect.
Yep.
And that's why I love Orndorff.
He's been consistent. One of the few that's been consistent. He always gets the job done, and the pile driver always looks awesome. And he doesn't drag them out as long as everybody else does, which I'm sure is probably to the dismay of Herb or whoever's timing the show. But
I figure he's like, hey, fuck you. I'm getting paid whether it's 3 minutes or fucking 12. So.
Exactly. Let's see. So at this point, we are ready for our pre-main event promos. Is that correct?
That would be, I believe, Debeers was up first. I hope you don't have that one.
Oh, but I do.
They tell me that there was a big fire at a movie studio. Fantasy World has burned to the ground. Fantasy World is in America. Billy Jack, you live in a fantasy world because you're facing not only the world's toughest athlete, but the universe's greatest athlete. I don't care if that black referee is in there or not. It's not gonna stop me. In fact, I'm gonna whip both of you in the same night. Listen, UWF and promoters everywhere. I was born and raised in the streets of Portland, Oregon, and I was babysat by black people. Why? They're because they are no worse or better than you or me. And the UWF Commission, you better open your eyes up and listen to what I'm saying. Because tonight, I fight for Billy Jack, I fight for blacks, I fight for Hispanics, I fight for Orientals, I fight for everybody. And South African freak, tonight I'm gonna kick your ass.
Now listen, we've had some fun with Billy Jack Haynes promos in this 7-episode streak of UWF, but I mean that just raised the bar to a whole nother level. So saying ass and having it beeped is getting to be a staple of his. He's got 2 staples of a Billy Jack promo. He missed one of them. He didn't mention that he loves little kids.
He was too mad.
So mad. He was so mad. It wasn't time to talk about how much he loved his affection and love. As inappropriate as it may seem to be for little kids, it wasn't time to talk about that. But it was time to talk about kicking somebody's beep, and that is Billy Jack. I mean, that's Col Debeers. And
I don't know what the fuck Debeers was talking about. But...
Oh, Fantasyland burned down or some horse shit. No, it was about
that. I was babysat by black people. Why? They're because they are no worse or better than you or me. Because tonight, I fight for Billy Jack, I fight for blacks, I fight for Hispanics, I fight for Orientals, I fight for everybody.
I think it's important. I think it was great timing that this episode landed this week. Because Monday, we had Martin Luther King's Day. And here we have Billy Jack to remind us that he was babysat by black people. Why? Because they're no worse or any better than you or me. You know? It's almost like they're equal or something, you know, in Billy Jack's mind.
Because when I think of equality fighters, the first guy that comes to mind, Billy Jack Haynes.
Oh, you want the biggest meth head looking house painter in the promotion to be the symbol of freedom.
That promo only would have been better if he'd been wearing his fucking painter's cap.
Oh, I know. If he'd have been rocking the painter's cap backwards,
yeah, totally.
I mean,
to show he was down with the youth of the 90s.
Right on, kids. I love y'all.
Right?
But yeah, and I love that he threw some love for the Orientals out there as well, because they get forgotten sometimes, you know. And he made sure that you knew he was fighting for the blacks, and he was fighting for Billy Jack. He's got to fight for himself.
Well, yeah.
He's also fighting for the Orientals as well. Mexicans, no. No, they can fight for themselves. But
he did say the Hispanics. That's all inclusive.
Well, okay, okay. If we want to, if we're going to include all of them, I thought he was being very specific, but that's good. He included. Who did he miss? Did he miss anybody?
I mean, I guess the rest of the white people are on their own, other than himself.
No, yeah, they've had enough people fighting for them. They don't. I mean,
I guess the most of the rest of the
he's not fighting for the Muslims.
Pacific Islanders, I guess he's wrestled with enough of them. He knows they're good by themselves.
Yeah, they got all the different ones that wrestle already. They can take care of themselves. I mean, they got Haku on their side. They don't need Billy Jack.
Yeah, that's true. They don't really need backup.
They're covered.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just feel like Billy Jack's fighting for everyone.
I'll play it again if y'all aren't understanding what Billy Jack's about. I can play it again. But no, let's take a look at our let's take a look at our main event here.
We're gonna get canceled, Gene. Don't do it.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional Wrestling. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puro Resu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. So if you're looking to support that next up and coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
We're being very sincere right now. We're talking about how great it was that Billy Jack stood up and did this. He was ahead of his time. This was long before it became fashionable to be so open-minded and what do they call it, woke or whatever. I mean, Billy Jack was doing this in 1990.
We did have one more New York promo
from
Albano. Yeah, he talked about 1,000 miles an hour, and the only words I understood were New York. So I do know it was about New York. I couldn't tell you anything else he said, but
yeah, I didn't.
Oh no!
I just put Captain Lou New York promo. We don't even have a picture of that one. So
people can get think of any other Albano promo we've shown or you've ever seen, and add the words New York to it, and that was the gist of it.
Yeah, I was so over Albano after that Captain Lou's corner with John Tolos. I didn't even watch. I skipped over this one. Because I just knew it was going to be New York City and Captain Lou and woo. So I didn't realize that there was a time where Captain Lou was throwing in woos like Ric Flair at some point. So here it is. There's our referee. There's the combatants with the referee there in the middle. We're almost ready to go take a look at this.
The main event starts with 13 minutes left in the show, and that is way too fucking long.
Yeah. I mean, with considering who the participants are, yeah.
No, we probably should have discussed this ahead of time, but we didn't because that's how we roll. But is the clips you have the ending of the match or just parts of the match?
It's parts of the match followed by the ending.
All right,
it's got a few different highlights here, so I'm going to run it. If there's anything that I missed that we need to go back and comment on.
I would like to read just one thing before you start. There was a portion of this match where there's a bit of commentary that I just wanted to point out to show how Much Herb gets his wrestlers over. Bruno starts by saying, "Oh my, it looks like he spit out a tooth. I sure hope that wasn't a tooth." To which Herb says, "Well, if it was, I don't know how you'd tell. He's missing so many teeth anyway."
Oh yeah, we got that. We
good. Perfect.
We definitely made sure that made the highlight reel.
All right. Well, I'm sorry I spoiled it then. Go ahead.
No. Now they know to be looking for it, because sometimes the commentary is hard to hear on some of these clips. So check it out.
Don't worry so much about Larry Sampson. Worry more about Billy Jack Haynes. All right.
Unbelievable. Billy Jack has just attacked De Beers. The match hasn't really even officially started.
Yeah, takes him down. Uh-oh.
You know, the Colonel's so busy bothering with Larry Sampson, he didn't even notice Billy Jack coming to the ring. He tries to tackle him like that. He's counting. And now it looks like he's going to pick him up and throw him on that metal pole. Sure does.
Man, he dropped him right on that bar. Right on his neck. Boy, looked like he spit out a tooth. I hope it's not a tooth.
Well, if he did, I don't know if you could tell, because he's sure missing a few right now.
Now this should give Billy Jack a little bit of time to get back here, because De Beers said, "Whoa, one of these left." But he took some really severe blows.
De Beers throws him against the ropes. Whoops, leapfrogs referee. Oh, wow. Did you see what De Beers deliberately knocked that referee into Billy Jack, Bruno?
Well, the referee was in the way, and he never had a chance to move out of the way.
Sampson's hurt. Does he know what's going on? Look at that cheap shot by De Beers. He kicked Sampson in the face. He would have been submitted right there, Bruno. Billy Jack had the win.
But don't you see? Now he caused a disqualification. He caused a disqualification here. Sure, when you kick the referee like that, it's automatic.
The referee has rung the bell.
Ladies and gentlemen, your winner by disqualification, Billy Jack Haynes.
Well, no doubt about it. The disqualification was automatic, and I think that De Beers did it to save himself from a submission hold.
He didn't want to win the bout that way. Now look at this. He deliberately kicked Sampson. Now he's arguing with Sampson. What another cheap shot!
Yeah, but wait a minute now. This is uncalled for.
We got to get Billy Jack Haynes back into the ring.
This here is going to cost this man some kind of either a fine, suspension. Oh, no, there's a DDT here.
This is unbelievable. That was a DDT version.
Boy, Jesse's pretty brave shot with De Beers like that. He's got to be careful. He does the same thing to him.
This is despicable. We got to get some of the guys in here. Now he spits on Sampson. I don't know why Billy Jack just left the ring like that before making sure that Sampson was out of the ring. He knew that there was a problem here before, and that De Beers has acted up.
In all fairness, though, Billy Jack didn't know what this nut was going to do. He thought the match was over, and he left.
A lot to cover there. So the match starts with a big botch where Billy Jack goes to run De Beers' head in the mat, almost like a modified bulldog. But De Beers just keeps running and takes a corner bump into the turnbuckle instead. That's where we start this thing. And it just goes downhill from there, more or less.
Yeah, not the best match I've ever seen by far.
It was funny. Another thing, it was a recurring theme in there, is it seemed like Billy Jack was trying to set up for like an elbow drop, and every time he would get De Beers down, De Beers would immediately start coming back up, and he would try even harder to get him to stay down. So I don't know if Billy Jack has a really stiff elbow drop or what, but De Beers was determined not to be on the mat long enough to take anything from him. Thought that was kind of fun. So we heard the line about the tooth, or the teeth, lack thereof. But this is kind of jumping ahead. But when you gave that example, you talked about Herb putting over the wrestlers. Like, I find it crazy how after the finish, De Beers gets himself disqualified by hitting the referee. We keep that story going, and then so Billy Jack gets declared the winner by DQ, and Billy Jack's like, I'm out.
Yeah.
He gets out. He heads up the aisle. And Abrams, after Debeers attacks the ref, he gives him some of the weakest looking. He hits him with the weakest looking axe handle you've ever seen from behind. He's clearly stomping the hell out of the mat, but barely touching Larry Sampson. Then gives the most just lamest looking DDT I've ever seen. I mean, it would make Jake the Snake cringe. And then Herb completely buries Billy Jack by saying,
Right.
why would he just leave without making sure Larry Sampson's okay after all this has happened? Just in case there's one single fan out there who wasn't already thinking that and thinking that our babyface is a complete shitbag. Let's just drive it home. I mean, we've talked about time and time again how the commentary does more to bury this product than even the shitty in-ring action does. The times that maybe if you didn't point it out, nobody would notice or really think about it. They always manage on commentary to point it out, the stupidity of what's happening in front of you.
My only thought on that would be, well, since we're going to reveal it in a little bit, this is Billy Jack's last match in the UWF. So maybe they recorded commentary in post and knew he wasn't coming back. Or am I giving them too much credit? You're
probably giving them too much credit, but I would buy into that line of thinking if it wasn't already kind of like an established thing where, like, just like I say, you know, they point out when they do that awkward, ridiculous, nonsensical count out finish that we're obviously not going to be happy with. But then if just in case we were oblivious, this is stupid. There wasn't enough time to count to 10.
That's true.
They should have broke the count. So they buried their own thing. And that's happened time and time again. So my guess is just Herb's too ignorant to know that pointing that out buries the babyface. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised too if that wasn't the case, that maybe it's recorded in post and then maybe he's like, yeah, fuck Billy Jack, you know, I'll say this. But I don't think Herb's smart enough to know that would be burying him or even know what burying means. But nonetheless, it is a fitting send off as Billy Jack's walking away for her to be like, look at this, you know, this asshole walked out and left the poor ref. Meanwhile, I happened to notice as Billy Jack is walking down the aisle, walking off, abandoning the ref, there's a fan holding a sign that says Larry Mania. So the only real sign that somebody took the time, the only wrestler on their roster that was over enough, is somebody went to the store and bought some poster board and took some markers and made a sign, is their referee.
That would be a great, we should just finish this whole series right now because that sums up this whole goddamn promotion.
and yeah, I mean, and the only way you could have paid that off is if Larry Sampson would have won the tournament and been the first champion, and you know, we just built off of this huge momentum. But I don't know that we really do much else with it after what you just saw. I may be wrong. Maybe it does pay off somewhere, but I know there's never a Larry Sampson Col Debeers match.
Thank God.
So wrestling common sense logic would have made you think that, okay, they know Billy Jack's on the way out. We need to tie up the loose ends of this Larry Sampson Col Debeers angle if we're not going to just pivot somebody into Billy Jack's spot, which is what we've been doing with everything else. You would think that somebody needs to beat Debeers and raise the referee's hand or whatever, you know, we signify that they got the better of him. But instead, Billy Jack walks out like an asshole. Larry Sampson left laying face down in the ring, and Debeers walked away unscathed.
I don't know that Billy Jack just fucking fought a battle for every race on the planet and he won. I don't know you can call him an asshole.
Well, it kind of is though, because it's like, look, I'm here to get the victory for all these different races. Now, how you end up after that victory, I don't give a shit. I'm not coming back out to help you. Like, if this guy stomps your head in and gives you a DDT, I mean, I may have been babysat by blacks, but I'm not on overtime here. I mean,
he's not going to babysit that.
They pay me bell to bell. I'm not babysitting you, you know.
Exactly.
So figure it out. But we're gonna circle back to Billy Jack here in a minute, as producer Smokey has prepared something very special for Billy Jack and his fans. But before we get there, we got to look ahead to next week. Let's see what we've got in store.
Well, by the way, that Billy Jack win makes me 2-0-3.
Okay. You got to rub my nose in it, right? 2-0-3. Okay. Well, let's take a look at what tremendous main event we got to look forward to next week here on the Fury Hour / Fury Cast.
Nikita Koloff, the man that refers to himself as the Russian Nightmare, will meet the world's nightmare, Ken Patera. I was the one that defeated every Russian turkey neck that crossed his path. That's right. I put them all out to pasture. And that's exactly what I'm going to do to you. You're looking at the man that when he gets up in the morning, he snaps necks because he likes to hear snap, crackle, and pop just before I dip into a big bowl of Rice Krispies. Well, Ken Patera, I have a lot of respect for you. You see, you have accomplished many, many things in your career. You have been in your gym training hard. Well, you see, I have been in my gym training hard. I don't know what's going to happen in this match, but I know it is going to be a contest, Ken Patera. Be ready for Nikita Koloff.
That's next week's feature match on UWF Wrestling.
So here's how I picture this happening. Herb or whoever's booking this shit show goes up to Ken Patera, puts their hand on his shoulder, goes, "Listen, up to now, Billy Jack Haynes has been carrying the load of craziest, dumbest promos on the show. He's leaving tonight. We're going to need somebody to pick that ball up and run with it. What do you got?" And Patera's like, "I got you, brother. Don't worry." And he delivered turkey neck Russians. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. And then he's a guy who likes to get up in the morning and break necks because he likes to hear snap, crackle, and pop as he eats his Rice Krispies. Before he eats his Rice Krispies, because he's going to hear it then, but that's different.
You know why, right, Gene?
I don't.
He's a serial killer.
Hey now, that should have been his new moniker.
That was fucking terrible. I mean, I shouldn't expect anything less from Ken Patera. But
I mean, I almost skipped it. Like when his face came on the screen, I was like, let's just. I was like, well, all right, let's see what he has to say. And it's usually nothing of note, though. Like, usually it's just like, okay, it wasn't good, but it wasn't, like, spectacularly bad like that, the one we watched with him recently. But as soon as I heard the line about the Rice Krispies, and I immediately sent you a message. I'm like, have you seen the Ken Patera promo on this episode? Like, we got a new champion of shitty promos. Like, he has stepped up to the plate and knocked it out of the park. Wow. And Nikita promo was just another one of these generic Nikita promos. He didn't even talk about coming in New York or anything. He just, just like, "I have much respect for you, Ken Patera." I'm like, well, clearly you haven't seen that promo, because if I had any left, he just shot it in the head with that damn promo. Now, before we go,
if Patera starts doing cereal puns every week, I'm in. But well, first of all, I think it's your week to pick. So who you got, Koloff or Patera?
I respect the fact that he was willing to go the extra mile to be the new champion of shitty promos in the UWF, and so I gotta go with Patera. I'm picking him to win.
All right, I guess I'll go with Nikita then.
And because my throat hurts and I can't properly say Nikita Koloff the way that everyone is used to me saying it recently, so if I just calmly said, "I'll pick Nikita Koloff," everybody's like, "What is this shit?" He doesn't. So there's our picks. I pick Patera. You pick Nikita for our huge main event next week. It's going to be amazing. But before we go, we got, of course, something special here at the end. But before we go, let's hear from this week's sponsor.
Promotional consideration paid for by the following.
Hi, fans. Captain Redneck Dick Murdoch here in Tulsa, Oklahoma, visiting one of the world's greatest schools. The name, Tulsa Welding School, especially pipe welding. The training's tough, but it's well worth it. You wouldn't believe the money these folks are going to make in just a few short months. I mean, big money. Why don't you send for this free catalog, Tulsa Welding School, and while you're at it, you can also get a list of the salaries these folks are earning. Make your day. Call now. Call 1-800-331.
For all of our fans out in Tulsa, that's a deal you can't beat.
Now, little known fact that after that match with Dr. Death, Robbie Allen went on to the Tulsa Welding School and had quite a career for himself. And you wouldn't believe the money he made, just like Dick Murdoch just pointed out there.
Because, I mean, if you can't believe Dick Murdoch, who can you believe?
Nobody. Because Captain Redneck that's who I want to put my career. You know, if I'm thinking like, I need to pick a career, something that I could base the rest of my life on. And like, well, Dick Murdoch suggested this. This has got to be a good plan, right? I mean, because he's a trustworthy soul, and he would never steer you wrong.
I can't think he would. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we discussed earlier, Billy Jack Haynes tonight won the battle for racial equality, and he has given us 7 weeks of wonderful entertainment. But the powwow's over, and he's going back to Portland. And as Gene intimated earlier, producer Smokey has put together a beautiful piece for us to remember our good friend Billy Jack Haynes by. So we're going to leave you with this. We'll see you next week for episode 8. But things are never going to be the same.
I fight for blacks! I fight for Hispanics! I fight for Orientals! And I want babies shed by black people! I still love you, little kid.
Hey, folks, before we get out of here, I'd just like to take a moment to tell you we appreciate you checking out the podcast. And if you would, do us a favor, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast wherever you're listening to this right now, wherever you're watching it. If you'll just take a moment to either subscribe, to rate, and review, let us know what you think. We hope you're liking it. But even if you're not, let us know what you would like to see changed, and we will take that in consideration as we move forward. So we really appreciate any feedback we can get. Also, we just want to say how proud we are to be a part of the WrestleCopia brand of wrestling podcast. Ray Russell brings you something for everyone over at WrestleCopia.com. Check out all the great wrestling podcasts available over there right now. And for all things related to the Retro Wrestling Review podcast, you can go to USWApodcast.com. And you can find links to everything we have there, our Facebook, our Twitter /X, our TikTok, our Instagram, our merch store. That's right. We've got shirts. We've got hats. We've got phone cases. We've got all kinds of great stuff. And it's all right there at our store. And you can find a link to it at USWApodcast.com. There's a link to the YouTube channel we're associated with, the Retro Wrestling Archive. You can find all that there. And if you have questions for us, if you saw something on the show that you have a question about or a comment about, if you've got some info to answer a question we have, or you had a question you want us to read on the air, if you want to work out an ad swap, if you want to have any kind of communication with us, you can go and send an email to uswapodcast@outlook.com, and I will get back to you just as quickly as humanly possible. And if you're a fan of Dangerous Conversations with Doug Gilbert, and if you've heard it, I know you are, check out DougGilbertPodcast.com for all things related to Doug's podcast. You can find links to our Facebook page for the show, our Twitter. You can find links to Doug's social media, his Twitter, his Facebook. All that's available there, plus a link to the YouTube channel. And if you have a question for Doug you would like for me to ask him on the air, you can send that question to DougGilbertPodcast@outlook.com, and we will get it added, and it will get answered in a future episode just as quickly as we can work it in. So we appreciate you listening. Thank you so much, and we'll catch you here next week for more
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/WrestlePod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.